setting it up so that instead of one big, huge lump sum up front, he's going to get a certain amount of money every month for as long as he lives. And he's very excited about that. It's essentially his retirement, right? He's got a retirement already, but it's just a retirement bonus. So that's one way. Seller financing, very common way. Most businesses under about $2 million can be acquired with some level of seller financing and are acquired with some level of seller financing. I believe the statistic is 60 or 65% of businesses under $2 million are acquired with some sort of seller financing. Another one is the SBA. So the SBA is a great, using SBA.
Yo, this is Christian D. Evans with Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our amazing podcast. This is where we reveal the top 1% of business concepts and systems and processes to scale 8 and 9 figure businesses. We interview top level 8 and 9 figure CEOs, business owners, and amazing TEDx speakers like David Meltzer. We got Nick Cavuto, Pascal Bachman, and so many others. And if you feel like this resonates with you, please share this with your friend, your family, and make sure you impact them as well, because we're trying to spread the message on those that do not know how to scale 8, 9 figure businesses and talking higher level business concepts. So guys, remember, enjoy the episode and be uncommon if you can. Cheers. Thank you so much for tuning into Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I'm your host, as always, Christian D. Evans. Now, if I told you my next guest has helped companies grow over $1 billion in revenue, would you listen to this episode? You bet your ass you would, because you'd be like, holy shit, man, I got to share this with a friend. I got to share this with a family. I got to implement these strategies into my business. Well, that's the reason why I have this next guy on. We're going to be talking about everything about your methodology on how to have the exit and proper exit strategy, and maybe having a succession plan, but also what you need to be focusing on when you're in a growth stage. Majority of our audience that you're listening right now, you're at $2-3 million run rate. Awesome, wonderful. But there's just so much that's going on. You have no idea what to focus on, the right thing in the right sequence. And that's the reason why I have this expert on now. He's been an investor for over 30 years. Now, he has used effective, innovative forms of marketing and strategic investments to grow companies, like I mentioned, over $1 billion in revenue. Identifying and executing winning revenue generating strategies is his superpower. In fact, it's often been said he is known for saying, create money out of thin air. Please welcome the CEO and founder of Westbound Road, my friend, the one and only Marty Fahncke. How you doing today, Marty?
I'm doing fantastic, Christian. Wow, thank you for that introduction. That's that makes me sound pretty cool. I want to meet me now.
Well, hey, I have the pleasure of meeting you, and I'm excited having you on this podcast and having this conversation, because, like I mentioned, you've been in this industry for many, many years, and you have seen everything from. And we were just talking about offline about how some people are in divorce, bad partnership, terrible situations, whatever it may be, where, oh gosh, and they come to you, hey, Marty, can you run a miracle in my business? And the sad thing is, like, hey, I'll do what I can, but they should have reached out to me 2 or 3 years prior when they're thinking about having this exit. But before we dive into all that fun stuff, Marty, I would love to dive into your story. How did you get involved with it? And what are the biggest pivotal points in your journey that have been the most learning, the best learning experiences?
Yeah. Okay. Well, how long is this podcast? Because this is a long story.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's see. I'm going to hit a couple of highlights. So highlight number one, when I was about 20 years old and I was working in a call center, and I had a family, young family, and I needed to make more money. And I looked around and I said, who's having fun around here? Who's wearing the nice suits? Who's driving the nice cars? Who's kind of got it going on? And I looked around, and it was the account executives in the corporate sales department. They were the ones going out and closing deals for the company and making great money and living a great life. And I said, I want that job. That's the job that I want to have. And I found a mentor who kind of helped me get to that place very, very quickly. And I realized at that time, and I'd always been pretty good at sales, but I'd sold water filters and vacuums and stuff. And corporate sales is a whole different deal. And so I worked really, really hard for a couple of years and learned how to sell big things. And the last thing I did before I left that company was I closed the DirecTV customer service account for that company, which has subsequently gone on to bill over $300 million. And that was one of the last things. So I learned how to sell big things at a high level. That was very pivotal. Fast forward about a decade of different things, real estate, call centers, computer hardware, peripherals, et cetera, and started a little company with some friends of mine. It was a little sporting goods product. At that time, I again was very great at marketing, very great at sales. I knew how to generate revenue, and that was all I knew, was how to generate revenue. And so we built this little product, and I put it on television, did well, put it on QVC, got it on TV in Japan. And 18 months later, some company came along and said, "Hey, we'd like to buy your business." Okay, we knew nothing about buying or selling a business, but we were, reasonably young guys, and they offered us, at that time, seemed like all the money in the world. So we sold our business to this company, and that was my very first exposure to mergers and acquisitions. Didn't even know what it was called then at that time. I just thought I sold my company. Fast forward again a couple of years, and I'm working for a company, which, by the way, I want to point out, that business that we started went from zero to about $1 million in revenue in the first year. Because you kind of introduced me talking about, that I've generated well over $1 billion, and I have, but I want to bring the numbers to a realistic place that your audience is sitting at now, because most of my experience has been building businesses from zero to 25 or $30 million on average, or from maybe $2 or $3 million to anywhere from $30 to $50 million. And so it's not massive, huge business. I've tried to stay actually reasonably entrepreneurial in my ventures. So when I'm talking about growth and the businesses I've worked with, most of them are the businesses exactly like the businesses your listeners have. So fast forward a couple of years, I'm working with a company to help launch, and this tells you how old I am. I was the very first person in history to put a URL on an infomercial. This was in the year 2000. Prior to that time, it was only toll-free numbers. And there was this great fear that if you put a URL on TV, people would just get lost in the ether, and that you couldn't, if you couldn't force the person to call to place their order, you couldn't do upsells, which were kind of the lifeblood of that direct response marketing. And so I was the very first person to put a URL on an infomercial. And I pioneered a process online of doing sequential upsell process, very much like we were doing in a call center environment, that was far different than the traditional shopping cart experience. With that, I was working with a company who the CEO was an incredible visionary, and he hired me to do this. He hired me to accomplish this. That I see the internet and e-commerce is the future of this industry. Now, that seems odd in 2022 to go, well, duh. But back in 1999, 2000, Amazon was losing money hand over fist. You had like these .com businesses that were raising massive amounts of VC capital, but they couldn't actually sell anything. And so that was a big gamble at the time. And he brought me on. At that time, the website was doing about $1.5 million a year. And I had this competitor who was kind of running circles around me in a couple of areas. I had a small team. There were 3 of us, and they had a team of 4 or 5, and they were really good and really innovative. And I was in the CEO's office one day, and I said, "Man, these guys are they're really good. They're kind of like doing this and this, and we're trying to beat them at every turn, and I'm spending more time trying to beat them." And he said, "Well, instead of beating them, why don't you go buy them?" What? Go buy them. Go call them up, see if they're for sale. Okay, I'll do that. So I called them up. Hey, and I knew the guy. We were kind of friendly but fierce competitors. And I said, "Hey, would you be interested in selling your business?" And he's like, "Sure, let's talk." And a couple months later, I owned his company. I owned his team. I merged them in with my team. We took his business, which at that time was doing about $2 million a year. My business was doing about $1.5 million a year. So combined, that's $3.5 million in revenue. Within 2 years, that combined force did $30 million by the 3rd year. $30 million. Now, had I continued battling him, he probably would have continued to grow and maybe done $4 or $5 million or something like that. I would have continued to grow and maybe done $4 or $5 million. But instead of battling, we joined forces through acquisition. And that was when the light bulb went off for me. It's like, oh, you don't always have to grow just by selling more stuff, which for most of my career, all of my career up until that time, that was my mentality. Like, you want to increase revenues, you got to sell more stuff. No, you can join forces and you can do a merger. You can buy another business. You buy another business, those revenues are yours. Those profits are yours. And the sum is much greater than its parts. The guy that I was working with is named Brett. He was a brilliant guy. He literally started this business with his best friend out of a dorm room. By the time I met up with them, they had a little warehouse in Northern California. Very scrappy, very entrepreneurial, far smarter than I ever will be. And so he worked for me for a couple of years. Well, later on, after we went public and a bunch of things happened and everybody made lots of money, he went his way, I went my way. And he later on started another business. I actually went to work with him at his company. And then we did another deal and he started another business. He eventually, he actually retired not too long ago. He just came out of retirement as an investor, but he actually sold his business a couple of years ago for $650 million to Adobe. He was basically 2 years out of college when I met him. So by acquiring his business, I acquired his mind, which helped me in large part to grow that business to $30 million in annual revenue from 1.5. So those were some pivotal moments. So learning how to sell and grow a business organically through marketing. And then the next point was learning how to grow a business through both great marketing and strategic acquisitions. And that's really what I love to do and what I love to teach other business owners about.
Marty, I really appreciate just kind of sharing those pivotal moments in your life that were like the big kind of high leverage points that were like, hey, this helped us scale beyond this. Now, I want to kind of loop back around here and stay here for a second in regards to, I know when you're looking, Marty, at a company, it tells a story, it's contextual. Right. And so each growth strategy kind of tool that you have in your tool belt, it's really dependent upon obviously what the story or the context of that situation of that company is. So I want my audience just to get a perception of, hey, when we put the eyeglasses of Marty on and the brain in, what does Marty look at in context? Because I know it's dependent. Obviously, hey, what are those red flags? What are those green flags when you're looking at a company and saying, okay, hey, you know what? How am I going to strategically grow this company through my resources, my abilities, my skills, right? And what does that look like? What are those things that say, okay, hey, I'm leaning more toward acquisition because I'm looking at XYZ, and that's the reason why I'm leaning more toward acquisition growth strategy, or I'm leaning more toward, hey, we're going to go ahead and increase what's already working in the company. So I'd love for you to just unpack that for us contextually with maybe even a case study that you've worked with, someone that you partner with, helping us understand contextually why you chose that growth strategy.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll actually talk about a current client that I have and what we're doing for them, because I think it fits very, very well with kind of telling the story of what we look for. So current client is an HVAC company out of Houston, Texas. And they have been, they're a very good company. They're doing very nice revenues, very profitable company. But they're the traditional, we'll come out and install a new air conditioning system, or we'll come out and install a heating system. We'll do repairs and things like that. You call them up if your furnace goes out, or you call them up if you're, they're in Houston, Texas. So it gets 180 degrees down there, I think, in the summertime. So if your air conditioner goes out, you call them up and they come and fix it or replace it or whatever. Okay, great. So really nice business, making great money. 4.8 star reviews on Google with thousands of reviews. So they're good, solid business. And, but a couple of problems with the business. Number one, it's seasonal. They do most of their business when it's really hot. And the second season is the very small window of time in the wintertime when it's really cold. And then the shoulder seasons when it's kind of nice, nobody calls them. So they're not making any money. And he has a large investment in trucks and technicians and tools and equipment that's kind of sitting a little bit idle. Okay, so what do we do with a business like that? Well, the first thing we do is we turn that business into a subscription business. Subscription businesses are where the gold is. About a month ago in the Wall Street Journal, there was a really great article, and I highly advise any of your listeners, Google this article about the car wash business. The car wash business has been completely revolutionized in the last 4 or 5 years. What did the car wash used to look like? You'd pull into a car wash, you'd put in a whole bunch of quarters, and you'd spray down your car. Then automatic car washes were created. You'd pull up in your car, you'd swipe your credit card, and they'd charge you, 12, 15 bucks, and you'd drive through it, and the thing would spin around and wash your car. Now, you almost can't get a car wash unless you have a monthly subscription. Okay, why is that important? It's important because the value of a car wash that's doing, let's say it's churning $1 million a year, $1.5 million a year. If it's a standalone cash business, the value of that business is maybe 3 times EBITDA. Okay, yeah, it's doing $1 million a year, maybe netting $250,000 a year, 3 times EBITDA, it's worth 750 grand. Yeah, nice. You sell that business, you got a nice little nest egg. You probably can't retire on it, but it's not a bad investment if you've, had that cash flowing for a few years and then you turn around and sell. What happens if it becomes a subscription business? Suddenly, you have something, you could be doing the exact same revenue. You could be doing the same $1 million, $1.5 million a year. You could be doing the same EBITDA, which, by the way, you're not. Your EBITDA is actually going to go up because you have people paying and not always using the resources. So your EBITDA might go up a little bit more. Let's say you're doing, $500,000 in EBITDA on $1.5 million in revenue. But guess what happens to your valuation multiple? Now you're looking at 7, 10, maybe even 12 times EBITDA. Let's just say it's 7. The exact same car wash with subscriptions at $500,000 EBITDA. Now that business is worth $3.5 million. That's life-changing money. It's the same business. All right, let's apply that to my HVAC client. Instead of waiting for the phone to ring those 2 times a year, let's put a subscription system together that gives the homeowner peace of mind so that on a regular basis, they're coming out doing filter changes, inspections, chimney cleanings, or flue cleanings, et cetera. So there's always a reason to need them. And let's put people on an affordable, cost-effective subscription that gives the customer peace of mind. Now, what have we done? We've evened out revenues and we've increased the enterprise value of that business simply by a great marketing campaign selling the peace of mind of a year-round subscription to help your home. Now, that's the sales and marketing piece. Can we grow a business that way? Yes. Can we increase the profits of the business that way? Yes. Do we substantially increase the enterprise value of that business should the owner ever decide to sell it? Yes. But here's the next phase. How often do you really need HVAC services in a given year? Yes, you should be cleaning your furnace and your AC, your air conditioner condenser annually. Yes, you should be changing your filter every month or 2 months. Okay, big deal. Here's how we're taking this business to the next level. We are actively acquiring an electrical business, a plumbing business, a pest control business, and a pool cleaning business. We are going to acquire 4 companies and fold them into this HVAC company so that suddenly the value of a subscription is much higher. We're going to come every month and we're going to spray for pests, which in Texas is a big deal, by the way. They've got the fire ants and all sorts of stuff. If you've got a pool, which a lot of people in Houston do, we're going to come and clean your pool on a regular basis. If you have electrical needs, we're going to come and check your electrical and make sure your circuit breakers. People don't know, but you actually have to clean your circuit breakers. Nobody ever does it. Why? Because why would you pay somebody to come do that? You don't even think about it. But if it's on a subscription and they're coming to do maintenance on your house, they're going to do that. Plumbing, they're going to come and regularly inspect and clean your drains and snake your drains. And when you have a problem, your VIP number 1, they're providing you gold service. So we're having a reason to come and help the homeowner every month, year round, and have that homeowner on a subscription so that it easily is budgeted, it's manageable, and it's easy to sell that to a homeowner. Like, man, I have peace of mind. I don't have to worry if my plumbing goes bad, who do I call? If my electrical goes out, who do I call? If my air conditioner goes out in the middle of July, and all of the other electricians in town are like, yeah, you're with everybody else. We'll get to you in 3 days. No, if you're a subscriber to my client, we will be there within an hour. Okay. How much is that worth to you? Is that worth $99 a month? Maybe. So we've taken a standalone we sell one thing to one customer business, and we've expanded the scope. We've, through sales and marketing, we've turned it into a subscription business. We've created products that have recurring revenue, which has massively increased its value. And we're adding products and services to that. And by the time it's all said and done, we will take a really nice little business and turn it into a business that the owner will eventually be able to sell for a massive sum of money. By the way, may I have a little advertising moment?
Please,
If
go
you
ahead.
own an electrical company, a plumbing company, a pest control services company, or a swimming pool company in the Houston area, please contact me. We would like to buy your business. End of commercial. Thank you, Christian. So that's how we holistically create huge businesses from small businesses, working with business owners that have a great vision for where they want to go and are willing to put in the time and energy to leverage their expertise with our expertise and make big things happen.
This is so brilliant. And I'm so glad you actually went the HVAC route, because I see this so much in the brick and mortar kind of service providing companies, whether it may be like a doctor or a dentist or whatever, and or maybe an orthodontist where they're only transactional, where they constantly have to have that flood of marketing and clients coming in. And as you and I know, there's no upsell. And if they do have an upsell, it's more transactional stuff. Hey, do you want, yellow braces? Do you want a yellow cast? Whatever it is, it's just more like the same, but it's still transactional.
Right.
And like you mentioned, having that reoccurring, what I've noticed is a lot of, owners, they don't know exactly, well, I never thought of that. They don't have the creativity of how to implement that. They maybe think about like, oh, I need to have a reoccurring, but they don't know exactly what service, what product they should be implementing, and also how to implement that strategically in the sales process. And now I want to talk a little bit about regarding what you mentioned here and regarding, hey, here you got the HVAC. What other services does that customer at the end need, right? And so naturally you mentioned, electrician, you got plumbing, you whatever, right? So you either do acquisition in different verticals that customer will most likely need. Now, I'm just curious, Marty, do you start with maybe partnerships, or do you go full acquisition? And if you do go full acquisition, do you go in more of like, what's your strategy in regards, like what's the closest next, level of what that customer or client is going to need? Or I'm just curious, help us understand that a little bit. And let's just talk with the HVAC industry. What would be the next vertical that would be the closest for them to transact?
So we, working with our client, we asked, where's the most next logical place to go? And he determined that electrical was the next logical place to go, because HVAC often needs electrical services tied to it. They often have to upgrade the electrical system in order to install maybe a higher level HVAC system. And so they're often calling in their buddies that own electrical companies to kind of do some electrical groundwork on top of that. So the most natural fit was electrical for them. So what we did is my team, we literally started cold calling electricians in Houston. And we found there were 1,150 of them. It's a lot of competition, by the way. 1,150 electricians. And we literally cold called every single one and said, are you interested in selling your business? It was that simple. None of this is rocket science, by the way. Any business owner can execute a strategy like this. We found one who, we talked to several who are, they're interested in selling. We found one who is a gentleman who's had his business for many, many years, like 40 years. He's getting ready to retire. His kids don't want the business. He was sitting there going, what am I going to do with this business when I retire? I'm either going to have to just close it down, or, try and maybe sell it, and I don't know how to do that. And he was looking at his tax implications and his retirement implications. And he was like, actually, I don't need the money. I don't want a bunch of big lump sum, because you get taxed really aggressively when you get a big lump sum of money, by the way. And so we happened to call him and he said, yeah, I'm open to this. We explained the strategy that my client's trying to execute. He got really excited because he's like, I understand that. I would never want to execute it, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to retire in 2 to 3 years. You buy my company. I'm the master electrician. I have the licenses. I have the expertise. I'll bring my entire team. I'll come over. I'll help you fold this all together, execute the strategy, stay on board for 2 to 3 years, and you take over my company, promise me you'll keep everybody on board, all the good people. Yep, absolutely. And let me leave the business, in a great place, and then I will fade out after about 2 years and leave it in good hands. And it's just perfect. Everybody wins in a deal like this. And so next, we're just about to close that deal. So next is, I think we're looking at pest control and plumbing. Actually, plumbing is what we're starting on now. So we're literally cold calling plumbers right now and saying, are you interested in selling your business? And yeah, so it's really client driven and needs driven. So every business is different. So like you said, whether you have HVAC, whether you're a dentist, whether you, and we do, most of our business actually is digital and online. We do a lot of e-commerce and agencies and direct consumer brands and things like that. Is really our core sweet spot, and we do this worldwide, by the way. We have clients in the UK and in Israel and United Arab Emirates and Brazil and Australia, and we work with businesses all around the world. But I brought up the HVAC example for two reasons. One is it's close to the United States, where most M&A happens, unfortunately, because there's a lot of activity that could happen worldwide, but doesn't as much as it should. But also because I think it maybe is a little bit more relatable. But any kind of business can execute this strategy effectively. Now, by the way, here's a little secret. You don't have to have a big pile of cash to do that. So there are ways to acquire businesses and put very little money into it, if any, in some instances. And so those are some. And so if you're thinking, oh, well, yeah, but how do if I buy a business that's $1 million business or a $3 million business, do I need $3 million to buy the business? No, you don't. In a lot of cases, you literally need $0 to buy that business. And we've got over 215 ways of making that happen.
I appreciate you bringing this up, because this is what I found very interesting. It's this misconception. So I want to stop here for a second. And I know you said, quite a few different ways, but maybe just share with me maybe another case study that you've had where you've been able to structure the deal creatively, where it was a win-win-win situation all around. And like you mentioned, it wasn't this huge, $500,000, $1 million check out of the, business's account. You're like, oh, we really can't afford this, right? So I'd love for you to just unpack that a little bit. Maybe just give us two or three strategies that or creativity that you've seen, structuring a deal properly.
Yeah. So in the case of this electrical deal, most of the funding has come from what's called seller financing. The owner of the current business is literally seller financing the business to the new acquirer because he wants a long-term residual income. And so we're setting it up so that instead of one big, huge lump sum up front, he's going to get a certain amount of money every month for as long as he lives. And he's very excited about that. It's essentially his retirement, right? He's got a retirement already, but it's just a retirement bonus. So that's one way. Seller financing, very common way. Most businesses under about $2 million can be acquired with some level of seller financing and are acquired with some level of seller financing. I believe the statistic is 60 or 65% of businesses under $2 million are acquired with some sort of seller financing. Another one is the SBA. So the SBA is using SBA funding is a great way to acquire businesses. Now, if you go to a bank, an SBA bank, and say, hey, I want to acquire a company, they're going to look and say, okay, great, you can do that. You need 10% down. Okay, that's a good deal, right? You can buy a $2 million business for $200,000. That's great leverage. You buy that $2 million business for $200,000 down, you grow that business to a $5 million business, you sell it, you make lots of money, everybody's happy. Here's a little secret lots of people don't know. And I haven't always shared this secret because it is kind of a secret, but I really want to give good value to your listeners. Here's the secret. The SBA 7A loan allows you to get a business expansion loan to expand your business for $0 down. What does that mean? Let's say you are the orthodontist you just mentioned, and you have lots of business coming through, and you're in a strip mall or a professional office plaza or something, and the unit next to you comes available, and you want to sign a long-term lease, but you need to buy all the X-ray equipment and the chairs and everything else to expand your business. You go to the bank, you say, I want to expand my business. And they say, great, let me look at your numbers. They see, oh yeah, you've been doing great. We'll give you an expansion loan, no money down. Here's an extra $500,000, go expand. An acquisition can be an expansion. Here's an example. Had a client in the Pacific Northwest that was a remodeling, a design and remodeling firm. Okay. We had an acquirer who wanted to buy that business, who was a design and remodeling firm. To acquire that business, we went in as a business expansion loan rather than an acquisition loan. Zero money down. The money, it was the exact same thing as if he was acquiring a building or acquiring equipment for his business. He was acquiring a business to expand his business. You do it as an asset sell, by the way, and we can talk a little about asset versus entity later on if you want, but he did it as an asset sell. So it's essentially as if he was buying more inventory or buying more equipment for his business. It qualifies the exact same way, and was able to execute a $500,000 acquisition of a business that expanded him into a new geography and put no money down. And by the way, the SBA won't lend you that money if it does not cash flow after debt. So they will vet the deal and make sure that if they're going to lend you money and your payments are going to be $5,000 a month for the SBA loan, they got to know that you're netting after payments, after everything else, you're netting $8,000 or $10,000 a month. They're not going to give you the money unless they see the value in the acquisition, right? So you're it's almost like your backup check. Like they're not going to just do this unless the deal makes sense. So they're your gut check. So that's a fantastic way. I probably shouldn't have told it. Can you delete this all out of your podcast? No, go ahead and share it, because this is really a key secret that a lot of people don't think about. Now, it only works if it's a direct same business. Your SIC code needs to be, and your NAIC code on your tax returns needs to be the exact same thing. You can't just be like my guy doing HVAC and buying an electrical and plumbing. They're not the same business. Can't do this strategy. Has to be the exact same business. But if that's what you want to do to grow, which is another great way to grow, this is one tool to use. So those are just 2 tools out of 200.
This is beautiful, and I really appreciate just sharing that.
I've never shared this on a podcast, so I'm like,
and I really appreciate that, because that is huge. I took some notes on that. Oh, this is awesome. And now I'm curious, with this expansion loan, is there a max amount that there should be? I know you mentioned a little bit of the criteria, but is there a max?
Yeah, I think for the 7A, I would have to look it up. I think it might be 10 million.
Okay, but there's enough.
I'm sure that's Googleable. I don't want to get on my screen right now and mess around with it. I'm sure that's easy. SBA 7A, Google maximum amount. I'm sure it's out there. So
no worries. Awesome. I appreciate you kind of mentioning that. I want to loop back around in regards to valuation, because see, there are some industries you and I know, Marty, that just don't have the same multiple. I know, like B2B SaaS, they just have really incredible multiples right now. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. I know manufacturing is kind of on the lower end. I want to just mention this because you mentioned by adding that reoccurring revenue, how often what kind of multiple increase do you see just by adding that one strategy into your growth?
Oh, it's massively different. So, like a manufacturing is tough because it's domestic, international. There's a whole lot to it. But yeah, the multiples are not great as far as like a multiple of revenue, because it's a tough way to make a living, right? And like making things, and machines break down, and the cost of labor right now, and you've got transportation issues and logistics issues and things like that. So multiples are down a little bit. So I gave the example with the HVAC company, and that it might be a 2 to 3 times EBITDA for that business. And when we turn that into a recurring revenue business that has, and it's recurring revenue that's really stable, because you gotta see a lot of stability, low churn, they call it. So sub 10% churn for sure, and optimally sub 7% churn. That can take a business from being a 3x multiple valuation to a 7x pretty quickly.
That's unbelievable. And I just want to foot stomp on that, because for those that are listening that may or may not have kind of a retainer or, a continuity system in the back end, then you need to be obviously implementing that, because on the exit, on the back, which we're going to be talking about here shortly, just drastically increases the multiple of what investors are looking for and the valuation of your company as well. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the exit methodologies a little bit.
Yep.
Like I mentioned at the beginning, Marty, sadly, you get calls all the time that says, Marty, I'm looking to sell my business right now and it's worth 20 million. I just know it. And you look at it, it's like, maybe not. Marty, if you could, because for those that are listening, when they're at 2-3 million growth stage, this is where they really need to start implementing these strategies and methodologies and making sure, whether that's 5-7 years down the road or 10 years, whatever that exit looks like. But I'd love for you to just unpack that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about valuation first, and then we'll talk about kind of when to call a guy like me. So first of all, on the valuation, yes, that's literally the conversation 99 times out of 100. They want to sell or they need to sell. And they call and they say, my business is this, and I think it's worth, so much money. And almost always it's really not. People are shocked to learn, especially what we call dancing monkey businesses, which is the business cannot survive without the owner being involved. If you have a dancing monkey business, it is not worth nearly what you think it is. Trust me, it's not. If you have a business that is able to operate autonomously without the owner being involved, then that's better from a multiple standpoint. So first of all, let's talk about valuation. Business valuation is a tricky and complex thing. People like to, their one experience with valuations that almost everybody has is a real estate appraisal. Most people have either owned a home, bought a home, sold a home, or at least looked at a home. And so they understand that there's this house and some appraiser guy comes and measures and does the square footage and calculates it all based on the comps in the neighborhood. And you can come up with, this is the amount of money this house is worth. And the bank will look at that appraisal and say, I agree, this is the amount of money that house is worth. It's very simple. And so everybody thinks that's how business valuation works. It does not. With a home, it's very cut and dried. With a business, there are 50 ways or more to determine, to estimate the value of the business. You can go based on revenue multiples, EBITDA multiples, SDE, which is seller's discretionary earnings. You can go on gross profit multiples. And then let's talk about the multiples. Where do the multiples come from? There are multiple databases that you can subscribe to. We have multiple subscriptions to these high-level databases that show every transaction that happens in the world. And so we can kind of come and say, okay, a business like this, if we factor it on a gross revenue multiple, will look like this. And if we factor it on an EBITDA multiple, it'll look like this. And so we can kind of put together a range. But then there's situational. So is the revenue of the business going up or is it going down? That makes a difference. Is it a dancing monkey business where, the owner has to be involved, or are they not involved? That makes a difference. Is it a business that's heavily impacted by circumstances of the day, i.e. logistics problems, employee retention problems? That makes a difference in the valuation. Is the revenue static or recurring? That makes a difference in the value. So there are 1,000 nuances that can affect the estimate of the business. At the end of the day, a value of a business goes back to the ultimate fundamental definition in the dictionary of value. It's what a seller's willing to sell it for and a buyer is willing to pay. And sometimes those numbers are shockingly different than even the estimates that we come up with. I literally yesterday had a company call me and they said, we've had 4 offers on our company and we believe we can get more. I said, well, how much are the offers? And they said, well, they're all between $4 and $5 million. I said, okay, how much do you want? And they said, 8 million. I said, I probably can't help you. And they said, why? I said, because the market's already told you what your business is worth. I can't create something out of nothing. If you've got 4 companies that have looked at your business, you've given them your financials, they've all looked at everything, and they've all come in this range of $4 to $5 million. We're probably not going to get you more than 5. Maybe we can put them against each other and maybe try and get a little bidding war going on. Maybe get you 5.5, maybe 6. But if 8 is your absolute bottom line, then I cannot bring you on as a client because we will not be successful. And I don't bring on clients that I can't be successful with. So in their mind, they had 100 reasons why their business was worth $8 million. They have professional valuations from VCs. Don't ever trust a VC valuation. They're completely different than real world valuation. But they had VC valuations. They had a couple other, like appraisal sort of things, and they had all these reasons why it was worth $8 million. I hope they get it, but I'm not jumping into that mix. The business has been determined by the market what the value is today, and so you got to be realistic, and you got to understand that that's truly the definition of value: is what can you really get a buyer to pay for your business? And buyers aren't dumb.
Awesome. So let's kind of dive into it. When you're looking as a buyer, right, or an investor, when you're looking at it, what is your methodology and like certain criteria that say, hey, you know what, this is what I'm willing to pay because I can see the assets, et cetera, the proprietary, the trademarks, maybe their customer base, maybe the ARR, whatever that looks like. There are certain KPIs that you're looking at in the financials, or maybe also you're looking on, hey, their team, their culture, what do they have established there? So kind of help me understand what that looks like.
Yeah, all of the above. If I'm either buying this for myself as an investor, or if I'm working with a client and helping them buy businesses, which is, obviously we do, we're looking at the less about the price and more about the structure of the deal. Okay, so why are they selling? Are we looking at buying the whole business or part of the business? Are they willing to do seller financing or some sort of earn out, or to put some skin in the game? That can make a big difference. We are looking for, and every deal is different, right? Some deals I want strong fundamentals, and I'm looking, to buy a good, strong cash flowing business because we want the cash flow. Other businesses, we see an opportunity to fix the cash flow or fix the profit. Maybe it's a business that's got really good top line sales, it's got a good client base, but operationally it hasn't been run great, and so they're literally losing money. But if we plug it into a strong backend infrastructure, it'll become profitable. I just closed a deal a couple months ago with a direct. I sold a business to a direct competitor of that business, who that's exactly what they saw. They said, "Oh my gosh, you have tons of great customers, you have great product, you've got a great name in the marketplace, but you are losing money hand over fist because operationally you don't have economies of scale. We have economies of scale. We're going to buy you and plug you into our system, and overnight your business as a business unit will become profitable, because that was the problem, was operations." So in that case, we found the right. So every deal is different. So I don't have a set criteria of, I will only look at businesses of this, that fit inside this box. I look at businesses where I can find value in opportunity. So you got to be a little bit creative. You got to be a little bit flexible.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there as well. And I want to talk about the deal structure a little bit more. You mentioned like the earnout and seller financing. Because what I always find interesting is it is about developing a win-win-win situation, right? And this is just in life in general, right? You're just trying to figure out, okay, hey, what is it? Having that conversation, that dialogue. What is this owner? What is this seller trying to look for? Why are they selling? What's the situation they're in, et cetera, et cetera. And I've talked to some people that are literally in a devastating situation, and honestly, we get a really amazing deal because of their devastating situation. I know that, but I mean, that's just kind of sometimes business. And I love to just kind of help me understand, like when you're structuring a deal and really you're just in the investor world, unpacking kind of where they're at and having those conversations. You like what questions do you ask to get them talking to help you identify, okay, hey, now I know the whole picture, the whole context. And now when I give an offer, when I'm kind of bringing up my suggestion of what we're looking at and kind of structuring the deal, hey, I know that this is going to resonate with them, because like you mentioned in the electrical, hey, they're looking for just recurring income. Cool, wonderful. We can structure that so that you can get compensated. You don't have to be, actively involved anymore. We'll take acquisition, we'll take total control over it, and then we'll just send you a check. Cool, that's exactly what I want, right? Structuring the deal. So maybe share another case study, I guess, of some just like structuring the deal in regards to like making sure there's a win-win situation.
So there's one word that's the key to what you're saying, and that word is why. I just ask the question, why? And then based on the answer, I say why. And then based on that answer, I say why. Eventually, if you ask why enough times, you'll get to the root of the situation. So I'll give you an example. An ad agency out of Toronto, Canada. This was about a year ago. Called me up, said, "Hey, I need to sell my company." Okay, why? Well, it's just I'm burned out. My partners and I are ready to go. We've had it for X number of years. We just want to sell it. Okay. Um, uh, how many partners do you have? Well, there's me and three others, so there's four of you. Okay. And what are you guys going to do after you sell it? Well, I don't know. We're kind of not talking to each other right now. Why? Well, there's been this falling out and this, and so kind of like, I don't know, we're all just like, we started this business 7 years ago, and like, it was great the first couple of years, and now it's like not working out. Why? Well, okay, this one partner did this thing, and so, now the others stopped talking to him. I mean, okay. So then I asked the next question, which is what do you really want here? Well, after hearing the whole story, she said, I really don't want to sell this company. I love this company, but I have to because our partnership is dissolving. I said, okay, do you have to sell it? She goes, well, don't I? And I go, no. So wait, what are you saying? I said, if you love this company and you're now the one that's really operating it and your three partners are vanished into the wind, why don't we just sell your partner's shares and you keep the company? I never even thought of that, she said. Okay, that's why you call me, right? She honestly thought there were two options: keep running the company all by herself and only getting 1/4 of the benefit from it and hating her partners and her partners hating her, or sell the company, take her share of the money, and go start something new. She didn't know there was a middle ground. And the only way I knew that was by asking why and what, and understanding what she really wanted. We wound up, she was in a 4-way partnership. She owned 25% of the company. We wound up helping her to find a strategic acquirer out of the United States, which, by the way, was one of her goals. She was doing great in Canada, but she really wanted to crack the United States market. We wound up finding a strategic acquirer out of the United States that has massively enabled her to grow her business. She is now a 33% owner of that business, not a 25% owner of that business. She's running the Canada branch. She's partnered with the United States. Everybody won there. The partners got a little cash and they left. Everybody got what they wanted there. And all I had to do was keep asking why and what.
Beautiful, beautiful example. And the reason why I wanted to emphasize this again, Marty, is because I hear so many people where it's just when they're at the table of the deal, sometimes I see that a lot of deals fall through because they just don't have enough tools in the toolbox to understand, hey, how I can structure this to make this a win-win. Like you mentioned, you came in just like as just a friend, just saying, hey, did you know you could do this other thing? I didn't even know that, right? Just adding another layer of option to the table so that they understand, hey, this is how we're going to facilitate, and getting clear on the result I'm looking for.
Right.
So
And let
awesome.
me touch on something. This is why, if you look at what my company does and what I call myself, I am an advisor. I am not a broker. I don't broker deals, and just like brokers, for the most part, you put it on the market, you sell it. It's very much like the house thing, right? A house broker, you put it on the market, they sell it, they get a commission. Everybody, it's very transactional. So as you've started to learn about me, I am less transactional and much more relational. And so just like the way I teach my clients to scale and grow and build great businesses on a relational basis, that's how I operate too. So I'm an advisor that will come in and look at what's best for everyone in the deal, what's best for my client, how can we solve your problems, regardless if there's a transaction or not. I don't get paid only when there's a transaction. I get paid to solve your problem.
I love it, man. I appreciate your time being on our podcast and diving deep and sharing those extra secrets that you normally never do, and just really giving us, just unpacking everything. I mean, revealing the curtain behind a lot of this structure, talking higher level, and just the strategy and the tactics and kind of what you look at. Just allow us to understand, hey, how does Marty look at companies, and what is that, the structure and the things that investors are looking at as well. So I appreciate unpacking that. Marty, how can my audience, if they want to, get part of your ecosystem, if they want to learn more, how can they reach out to you, my man?
Two best ways. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I'm the only Marty Fahncke on LinkedIn. Matter of fact, I'm the only Marty Fahncke in the world. So I'm easy to find. Fahncke. Maybe we can throw that on the screen or something. Or the other way to reach me is on my website at westboundroad.com. Either one of those are great ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome. And guys, those links will be in the description below. So make sure you stop what you're doing. And like I mentioned, and again, I want to foot stomp this. If you're in a situation where you're $2-3 million run rate, hey, cool, wonderful. And you want to build that infrastructure, you always got to think, oh, hey, you know what? Marty already, like you mentioned, he's not a broker. He's coming in as an advising ability saying, hey, okay, where you're at, asking those questions, understanding, unpacking, getting clear on that, and being able to help you walk through that and be able to get clear on, hey, what does that look like with the next 5, 7, 10 years? Whether that's an exit, whether it's acquisition, whether that's growth, whatever it is. So make sure you consume his content. Those links will be in the description there. And Marty, again, I appreciate you being on. I always like to ask my guests before I let you go fully, is there any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience?
Wow. I don't know. Wisdom, that's a tall order. Man, you know what? Nothing to do with what we've talked about, M&A or anything like that. But I'll say this. To me, business is fun. All my life, I've made sure that what I'm doing, I wake up every morning excited to do it. I love what I do. I have a passion for what I do, and that makes my life better. Please be the same. If you aren't loving what you're doing, then find something else to do, because life's too short to hate your job. So find what's going to give you joy and pleasure and happiness and pay your bills, and go make that happen. I'll just say that.
Lot of wisdom, guys. That is my friend, the one and only CEO and founder of Westbound Road, the wonderful Marty Fahncke. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Until next time, be uncommon if you can. Yo, this is Christian D. Evans, Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. We thank you so much for listening to this amazing episode. If you feel and you know that this was valuable to you, please show some love to our amazing guest by liking this, by commenting on this, by making sure that you do a nice 5-star review, and just show some love to our guest. That'd be really awesome. Also, make sure you share this with a friend, a family, a colleague, someone that you believe would bring value to their life right now. And guys, we just want to say thank you again for just being part of our community. If you want to have more resources, don't be afraid. Go to christiandeevans.com. You can actually schedule a phone call with me, or you can send me an email at christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. That's christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. Always love to hear some feedback, and let me know what is the number 1 or 2 things that you are struggling in your business and your life, and we'll make sure we have those conversations. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast, and until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers.